Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ShoutCraft America Group D. It is a fine Friday indeed. Thanks to all of you that decided to turn out for this one. I'm well aware we're clashing with pretty much every show on the planet right now, so it's very much appreciated that you guys decided to choose us. My name is TotalBiscuit, and I'm joined today for the co-cast by NASL's very own Frodan.
Hello, TotalBiscuit. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today.
Very much appreciated. It's going to be a good group, I think. It's going to be the group that is, I believe, most ripe for surprises.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A lot of these guys have a lot to prove. You can talk about some of the North American mainstays and state in QXC, but RSVP, a guy that's been posting on the forums, he's been around the North American scene for a long time, considering that he's always contributing to a bunch of guides, and he really is one of those Protoss players that tries to offer his insight. Yep. And Xenocider, an up-and-coming Terran player that a lot of people have been turning heads, especially since this guy gives pretty funny interviews, man.
Yeah, so I've been told. I'm actually looking forward to his interview versus RSVP a little bit later on. I'll show you the bracket, actually. Our first matchup right here between these two. It's going to be State versus QXC, and then it's going to be followed by Xenocider versus RSVP. For those of you who don't know, this is a dual tournament format. That means that the winner of those two matches will go on to play each other. The guy who wins that match, he goes through. He's done. It's a mini... what's the term? Yes, double elimination. Let's try that one again. Double elimination format, and then of course the losers will then battle it out for the second place position. What that then means is that in the round of 8 onwards, which is a best of 5 single elimination, we will be seeing the first place of Group C go up against the second place of Group D and vice versa. So we currently have the two fellows from last week just sitting there waiting for their opponents. We had Hello Kitty and Kane go through in Group C. So they will be waiting. Kane will be playing the second place finisher of Group D, and Hello Kitty will be playing the first place finisher of Group D.
Yeah, and I was really surprised by those results too. In fact, all throughout this tournament, there's been surprises. Players like Vibe and Suppy, those are Zerg players that are mainstays in North America. Those are the guys getting the farthest in international tournaments, and they're not even in the round of 8, so anything can happen. And Group D, I'm really excited because Terran and Protoss, those are the two races that I play the most TotalBiscuit. I'm really excited to get casting.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, and I think that if there's any group that really kind of personifies the idea that there's a bunch of really good American players that just don't get enough publicity, I think it's got to be Group D.
Yeah, I want to also highlight that a lot of these, like QXC, for example, hasn't been in the scene for a long time, but he's still been pretty active, winning things for his clans or even representing the U.S. in the RipMix RSL Nations Cup, and he still has a lot in him. So a lot of people will be very anxious to see, especially since QXC was doing like analysis for tournaments. They want to see how he's able to translate that knowledge into his play, and I think QXC is one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to advance from this group.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. Now, we had QXC to kind of get into this tournament pretty late. He was actively not laddering on US, and then came to ladder on US when he found out there was a tournament going on, and rapidly found himself in the top 16 without too much of a problem there. And it seems like he's been practicing, for the most part, on the Korean servers, whereas a lot of these guys, they play actively on American ladder. Do you think that's going to actually affect the results going into this?
Maybe. I mean, QXC has stated that he hasn't been able to practice as much as he used to, or rather when he was first transitioning full-time. But QXC at the same time, he's one of these players that you always has a really cool build, and I'm really anxious to see what he's going to put against State, because State has shown pretty good Protoss versus Terran even in his WCS Challenger matches. So I want to see what State has to offer, because I don't think you can underestimate him either. He took out Oz in WCS and a Premier League. I think he's full of surprises as well.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. So we go into this group really not knowing where it's actually going to go. I'm currently trying to get these guys into the group call, and it's flat out failing miserably at this stage. So I will hopefully be able to get these guys on the call momentarily. We can have our face-off, and then we can go into the first matchup, which actually will be on Neoplanet S, which I believe is the least popular map in our pool right now. It's barely been played this tournament.
Oh, really? That's kind of odd. I really like Planet S. I don't like playing against Zerg on Planet S, especially if I'm Terran or Protoss. But I really enjoy watching games on. I think it's one of those situations, kind of like Whirlwind. I really like watching or spectating a StarCraft game on maps like Neoplanet S and Whirlwind. But for the life of me, when I'm playing it, I absolutely dread playing on that battlefield.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. We see a lot of very short games on Planet S, as far as I'm concerned. Some people say, hey, you know, it's not a good map, I don't like it, but we're seeing a lot of vetoes for Neoplanet S at this stage, and that's not going to be a factor as we go into the round of 8 when we expand to best of 5 format, when all maps will be in play. So people are going to have to start preparing specific strategies to deal with Neoplanet S.
I absolutely agree. Do want to encourage people to check out ShoutCraft, as the website as well has full information, shoutcraft.com, including full standings as well as the future schedule. A lot of people were asking in the chat, they thought Idra would be casting today, but Idra will be casting the round of 8 as well as the full schedule laid out on that website.
Yes, they absolutely will. Shoutcraft.com has all the information you could possibly need. And remember to tip the players. All of these guys have tip jars. That means that you can reward them very much so for their play today. If you see something that you like, then by all means throw a couple of dollars their way. You would be surprised. We've actually had several players who have earned no less than $500 in tips, and that wasn't really a bunch of big donations. That was a lot of people throwing 30 cents, 40 cents, a dollar at a time, and really kind of appreciating their play, which is very, very cool indeed. So I'm going to get these guys on. We're just waiting for State's webcam to kick into play. Either that or he is what appears to be Kim Il-sung today, which would be a little bit strange, but you never know. We're just trying to get that sorted out for you at the moment and get that set up. But this is going to be a good day. I think this is going to be a day where we see a lot of strange results. We're going to be seeing things that people won't necessarily expect. And it's not down to maybe surprises, but I think it's more down to the fact that a lot of people just don't really know a huge amount about these players and don't get a great opportunity to see them all that often. So this is a really good chance for them to actually do that.
I completely agree, and I think it's really interesting to see who's going to come in first and second specifically, because one could argue that getting second in this group may be a little bit better for their fortune, just because going up against someone like Kane, who I think is really rising up to the top of North America, especially as a Zerg player, his play is really phenomenal, versus playing against someone like Hello Kitty, two completely different styles that you might have to prepare for. Someone might want to play someone like Kane as opposed to Hello Kitty, or even vice versa. You want to avoid Kane just because you feel like you can't go up against a Zerg like that, and you want to play Hello Kitty.
Yeah, if I'm totally honest, I would never actually want to play Hello Kitty because he prepares the most ridiculous cheese I've ever seen, and it's really, really hard to deal with as far as I can tell. And I don't think people really expected Hello Kitty to take out Suppy in the way that he did, but it was a different build every single time, and a lot of it was really potent. And Hello Kitty's also showed some pretty good decision-making, in my honest opinion. Snap decisions. Particularly the game where he ended up getting his DTs scouted, but then warped in around the Zealots first, then followed it up with DTs, and basically killed roaches using that composition, which really shouldn't happen, but he managed to pull that off anyway. So it's pretty damn impressive to see. Alright, well, we have these guys in. We are about ready to take a little bit of a face-off interview between QXE and State. So here we go, the beautiful faces of both. QXE, State, welcome to the show.
Hi.
How's it going?
Things are going pretty well here, as far as I can tell. Well, QXE, so gotta ask you first. You don't normally ladder on America, yet you managed to make yourself around a 16-player anyway. So to start with, how long did that actually take you?
I think I got about a week and a half. So it was a little funny because I thought for WCS they may be doing invites based on ladder. So before that, like, that was just a rumor that was going around. So I started laddering a lot, and I got up to like rank 8, and then they announced the invites, and I was like, oh, this actually wasn't. There was no reason to do this. So I stopped laddering, and I got kicked out of GM for inactivity. And then like 2 days later, it was like, hey guys, you need a ladder on NA because of ShoutCraft. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Got back into GM, and then I had about a week and a half, and got up there.
Nice. Now, State, you're pretty much a regular on the ladder. We don't see you an awful lot in tournaments, though, but you have been putting on an impressive display in WCS Challenger. How confident are you feeling going into this first matchup?
I like my odds. I don't want to say that I'll win in case I lose, but I'm feeling confident in my PB team, so I think I can advance in the group.
Very cool. Now, QXC, you usually ladder on career, is that correct?
I ladder on Korea until I get too frustrated playing at 260 millisecond ping.
Yeah.
Then I play on Europe. Usually what I do is I try and play on the servers at their respective peak times. So in the morning I play on Europe, and then at night I play on North America. And lately I haven't been playing on Korea at all because my sleep schedule just, like, they're all asleep basically the whole time I'm practicing.
State, do you ever actually ladder on servers other than the US?
I've tried laddering in Korea, but the delay is really annoying. And I live in California, so the delay to Europe is even worse. But no, lately it's been just NA server.
Do you feel that the NA server got any more competitive since the ShoutCraft qualification was actually announced?
A lot more competitive. I almost didn't qualify after I lost 4 games in a row on ladder, and I kept playing after that, and I got back into the top 16, but it was really stressful. It was like playing in a tournament environment.
Yeah.
I kind of wish the ladder was like that all the time. It was really good practice.
Well, we'll see if happening. Hopefully we get a Season 2, and we'll see whether or not that occurs. But QXC, going into this matchup, how confident are you feeling?
Fine. My TVP is good right now. I think I've been playing better than I've been playing in a long time, especially the last couple of days. And yeah, I have a lot of replays and a lot of history about State. I know how he plays. I've seen him choke against Drunken Boy yesterday, which was a hilarious way to lose.
Ooh.
And I'm really not concerned.
Mm.
State, so you choked against Drunken Boy. How are you going to avoid repeating that performance?
I was nervous against Drunken Boy because he's a good Terran, but I think I can take you.
All right. Guys, any final words for your opponent before you go into this? QXC?
2-0.
State?
Good luck. Good luck.
All right. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for your time. Assume the position, and let's get ready to rock and roll. All right, Frodan. So, pretty confident words coming out from both guys. State, not really a player that is too used to competing in this kind of environment.
Yeah, it's really funny to see QXC talk so confidently, because I did watch that game that Drunken Boy just, like, he should not have won that game, but State threw like 100 army supply in exchange for maybe 20 Marines, and State completely lost that game. State ended up winning the series though, so I hope QXC doesn't get too overconfident. And State's been playing pretty solid. It's not like he was doing any 2-base all-ins or Hello Kitty style shenanigans. So QXC has a lot on his on his plate. And I really think that it's going to be a good matchup, man. I'm really excited to see this Fighting Wars TotalBiscuit.
Yeah, it's always nice to see. These guys, probably the most polite. Group C, we had that trash talk. Suppy and Hello Kitty were trash talking each other in languages I couldn't even understand. It was getting that ridiculous. But in this case, you know, State doesn't have a huge amount of experience in front of the camera, and QXC's generally a pretty nice guy. Like, it's pretty hard to goad really nasty things out of QXC.
Yeah, unless you meet him on ladder and you cheese him. And then his keyboard suffers the worst of it. I also really think that State, I really want to see more variety in his play too, just because yesterday, just like QXC was saying, he knows State's style. And QXC is he's a really intellectual player as well. He really dissects builds. Once upon a time, QXC wanted to hire interns for himself to break down opponents' builds and analyze them. This is how deep QXC goes. He goes deeper than Inception when it comes to thinking about StarCraft 2 builds.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's something that we've seen from him, I think as a result of him just being so driven to be the absolute best, and he currently isn't. I mean, there's no question about that, but we are talking about the guy that all-killed IM in GSTL, pretty much the only foreigner to ever have that level of success in the Team League. And it seems like his style of preparation, as well as his style of play, is very intellectual.
For sure. And I think that's going to come into play. You know, QXC is saying his TVP has gotten a lot better. And I think Terrans do have a little bit of an edge against Protoss players. And I expect QXC to be aggressive. He's also a very naturally aggressive Terran player, loves dropping, loves multitasking. So I think State's going to have to be very wary early on, but I want to see the opening build orders before we make any further predictions.
Yeah, no real question about that. We're currently in the second lobby right now for Game Hearts, which of course will allow our players to pick their colors as well as pick their teams, which is always nice to see. We actually have 3 teamless players in this division, which is very unusual.
That's right. State used to be on Quantic, but after their disbandment and recollection, State has kind of been teamless. I hope not too long, though, because only, I think, select few individuals who are really motivated as well as financially secure can actually go teamless if they want to remain full-time. I think State's a great talent, and I think he's ready to prove it. And if he advances today and does well in ShoutCraft, all the more reason for a team to really pick this guy up.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. It's you know, I'm just really interested to see how these teamless players actually perform against like a real American powerhouse like QXC, and I think that's going to be extremely entertaining to see. We've got quite the selection of players. All right, we are about ready to get started, and it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be Neoplanet S. It is going to get messy. Okay, we're getting into the game right now, and I'm intrigued to see what happens. We also let the guys know, by the way, that Allied Chat can be seen by the viewers That's a feature of GameHeart, something rather unusual. We did have Suppy use that previously to actually commentate directly to the viewers what he thought Hello Kitty was doing, which ended up being hilarious when he was completely wrong.
Yeah, I remember
That
seeing
was
a
fun.
little bit of that.
That was pretty damn fun. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, on Neoplanet S. Our first contestant of the day in the Red Trunks playing Protoss to the northeast. His name is...
State.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. He's State. There's nothing else to really say about that. Thank you very much, Clutch, for the announcement there. Versus his opponent, a veritable titan. Bandana Man, as the Korean fans called him after his all-kill of LGIM in the GSCL many, many moons ago. He is in the Blue Trunks playing town to the southwest. He goes by the name of...
Complexity QXC.
So Neoplanet S is a really good starting map just because almost anything is viable. Opening Stargate is really good. Proxy Stargates is really good for State if you want to do that. Of course, State is more of a 3-gate Robos type of player after he expands. Drops from QXC can be really good, as well as just straight up macro play. You can even fake out your opponent, pretend to be going gas, and then just end up making a reactor and playing straight up from there. Reapers are okay, TotalBiscuit, but at the same time, Reapers are never bad in this matchup, I feel.
No, I don't think so. And the interesting thing that we're seeing here is that QXC is most likely going to go CC first, and that means, of course, that Reaper is probably not going to come into play unless he decides to go for a mid-game. To be fair, like I've seen mid-game Reaper actually used to good effect for scouting purposes, because generally speaking, when your opponent... there's that stage of the game where your opponent moves down to the natural to directly defend it against any kind of early pressure, leaving the main open for a Reaper scout, which, in my opinion, there are times when it's actually better for you than using a scan.
Oh yeah, just because you can get full corner-to-corner information if Protoss isn't careful. You can even pick off a probe if he's not completely paying attention. And the nice thing is, you can even still open up Reapers following a command center first if you really want to. Nonetheless, QXC still has to be a little bit cautious because command center on the low ground still is kind of bodacious, considering a lot of Protosses like going early Zealot Stalker pressure nowadays.
That's very, very true, but this seems to be the result of analyzing the pressure, isn't it? Actually, Zealot is coming out here from State, interestingly enough. It looked like he was going to skip it, but he's not. He also took pretty early double gas here, I feel. Now, this could be for a couple of different things, but knowing State's style, what would you expect from him?
I mean, he's taking double gas to really mind game his opponent if he's scouted, as well as gives him options. I don't really think State's going to do anything too crazy other than 1-gate expand. It just seems his style to be able to go double gas. And it gives you a lot of flexibility, because if you see Terran cheesing, then all of a sudden you wouldn't be pressed for gas or for tech. And I think in this scenario, State's just going to play macro.
Yeah, that seems to make sense. We've gone with, this is the gasless method of the early expand here from QXC. The CC first on the low ground without gas is usually followed by double barracks. That allows you to play catch up for a little while. It compensates quite nicely. Yes, I noticed that as well. That's going to be interesting, isn't it? It compensates quite nicely for the fact that you don't have a reactor, and it means that you can... There's this kind of time where Zealot Stalker pressure can be very dangerous, as you mentioned, but the double barracks without the reactor means that you get Marines out slightly earlier, but you can then get the momentum later on once you get the gas. Now, what you scouted right there, and what we spotted, of course, was a Stargate over to the side, and this is going to be reasonably difficult to scout if a Stalker comes out. And State actually does have a Stalker, so it seems very unlikely that this SCV is going to get in here. It's going to see the Nexus, and that's really going to be about it. And he's not really going to know about this, unless, of course, he just lets him through. And this actually could... He's got to kill us pretty quickly. QXC... No, he's gone the wrong way. He'll be fine. He's going to see the double gas, which it doesn't really tell him all that much, because Protoss at this stage generally have 2 gas anyway.
No, you're exactly right, TotalBiscuit. It's precisely for this very reason. You want to have the availability of, well, am I going to go for a quick tech, or am I just going to be, pooling gas and trying to go for something else? In this scenario, State opening up Stargate before the expand. Now, I do want to emphasize that this kind of opening sort of needs to do damage. Otherwise, you're going to be very vulnerable to a counter push in the mid game, especially since QXC went command center first.
Yeah, he lands the scan, and that actually misses the Stargate by a fraction. That's unbelievable. Oh, no, it did see it. It did see it, even though the indicators claimed that it wouldn't. Now, he went blind engineering bay before this, so as soon as his missile turret finishes, this Oracle's basically useless, and it's, as you said, it's going to do damage, but it's already being countered here. QXC moves in quite nicely, and he is doing a reasonable amount of damage. to that Oracle, driving it away, and there was a second Oracle behind this that didn't get cancelled either. So now with missile turrets in the mineral line, these Oracles are basically being flat-out countered.
Yeah, there's nothing really that you can do to the mineral line, at least. Now, if QXC is careless, he can get a couple Marines picked off. You want 4 Marines in the pack. That's their strongest. They get a little bit careless with his Oracles, taking damage on both. Has to be very careful not to lose it.
Doesn't do anything because the missile turret's there. I mean, this is pretty much a hard countered opening right now. There's no way that you can say that State's like ahead at this stage, simply because he just hasn't done any damage.
No, he's not done any damage. This is 300 if you count the Stargate. 450 gas. That's enough for a Robo and a Robotics Bay, so you can start a Colossus, which he's been doing in other games. So this is a different scenario. Now QXC's production still is about halfway finished. I feel like if he just does a standard 2 medevac poke, force the Photon Overcharge in one base and then drop in the main, I don't really know if State can hold it if he's not in perfect position.
No, the Oracle opening is very risky right now. It's something that Blizzard is even considering changing, in the fact that they're giving Oracles extra speed so that they can handle it just a little bit better, because Oracle is like a coin flip. Either your opponent has gone blind missile turrets or they haven't. And if they've gone blind missile turrets, you're screwed. If they haven't, you can do a ton of damage. There's really no middle ground to be had there.
Yeah, I do like this from State, trying to hallucinate an Oracles, but of course, if you're keeping it within turret range, he's going to see that's hallucinated, so you ain't fooling anybody, State.
Yeah, wasn't able to really draw his opponent out of position either, and even if he was, what are you going to do with it? What you can do in this situation is, if you're up against a Marine-heavy player, you can actually use Oracles to pick off reinforcements and pick off smaller packs of Marines. 2 Oracles will kill a pack of Marines pretty quickly, but it still means that the tech is basically worthless. You know, there's a lot of things that can kill Marines that don't involve that kind of gas expenditure.
Yeah, and now that QXC is moving out, State has to be really cautious. He does have enough energy for something like a Revelation, which he immediately drops.
Nice, I like that.
But he's gonna. It takes so much time for him to get this Templar Archives tech out and established, just because. Just look, he's on 3 gateways, and his charge is just starting. QXC is poking out. This is the perfect time for him to strike, despite him not having medevacs. I like this from QXC.
Yeah, this is really, really good. You don't necessarily need medevacs in this situation because you're not up against a huge amount of area of effect. The actual damage output of these gateway units is probably not enough to handle this. Charge is not going to be done before this hits either. This is a really nice timing here by QXC, I feel. And there's no way in a million years we're actually going to see any Templar come out here with Storm. There's the stim. Great force fields, actually, by State. That was absolutely perfect. And now trying to snipe from the upper ground here with that, and it's just not working. The Oracle does some damage, but now the medevacs boost in. They immediately pick up and go for the drop here. There is enough energy to do 1 photon overcharge, so maybe he pushes this back, but he is taking a lot of damage. The Zealots can't even get into range. I think maybe it would have made sense if State actually just held the Zealots back for a little while. Mothership Core goes down. This is disastrous for State.
Nothing's finished. Charge is almost finishing. Storm is almost finishing, but State can't afford either of those units right now just because QXC is immediately pressuring, and he didn't even get the opportunity to drop a Photon Overcharge whatsoever. QXC is doing so much damage with the small pack of bio.
This is a massacre. State is losing to 2 medevacs worth of units. Charge kicks in, but it's not enough, and State, of course, doesn't have Storm yet either. Feedbacks the medevacs, pretty much the best thing he could do, then turns it into an Archon, but the problem is there are more medevacs coming in. QXC is doing a huge amount of damage to the army of his opponent, and he's bringing in reinforcements. I mean, he's done this with 2 medevacs worth, and there's the GG immediately. The State just got obliterated by QXC.
Yeah, QXC even dropping the Manor Mule. It's really actually kind of funny or amusing, depending on how you look at it, that State dropped feedbacks, but there's only 1 or 2 energy per medevac, so no damage really dealt there.
Oh yeah, they were doing work, man. It's like, oh, right, great, you feedbacked us. We've already used all our healing energy. Who cares?
Yeah. I do want to emphasize that QXC's poke also was preemptive to try to see if he can force the Photon Overcharge, and State reacted really well with good force fields, just like you said, but no real power behind his defensive forces.
Exactly. It came in at a time when he didn't have any of the things you need to hold up against Marine Marauder Medevac, right? You had no charge, no Storm, no Archons ready, no other AoE. Force fields aren't enough. The Oracles, as you saw, just got destroyed immediately. They'd already taken heavy damage as it was, so they weren't going to be surviving that long. And it was one-sided. And it really came down to the fact that State took a risk on Oracles, and it didn't pay off.
Yeah, and I think most Terrans nowadays know to get some kind of early engineering bay. Even if you go for a quick reactor, going for an engineering bay engineering bay and getting a +1 real quick, giving you the option to defend against air. Very good job by QXC. Great build.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. We're going to take a short break before we go into the next game, ladies and gentlemen. QXC currently leads 1-0. This could be a very short series if the next game goes like that. We'll be right back after this. Do not go anywhere. You are watching ShoutCraft America. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ShoutCraft America. Don't want to keep you waiting for the rest of this particular group. That would be bad indeed. Whirlwind is the choice this time around. Bit of a bigger map. All spawns available here.
That's right. Do want to remind people that if you're just coming in, because we realize the show has started, that QXE won game number 1 on Neo Planet S, and now game number 2 is Whirlwind. Now, TotalBiscuit, did State choose this, or was the map predetermined?
State chose this, so the first map was picked, and then it's loser picks from there on in. But he only had limited choice because it's a 5-map pool with 2 vetoes. So, in that situation, he does have a little bit of an edge here by saying, yeah, okay, I wanted to be on this map, which is fine. Yeah, this should be pretty decent for him. If he wants to play a defensive style, Whirlwind's a great place to do it. That push is going to come a lot later from QXC, if it does come indeed. He's going to be better prepared for it. But I just don't want to see oracles here. I just want to see something a little bit more solid from State going into this.
Yeah, I think opening Robo or Twilight Council is much better in this regard, especially because, just like you said, Whirlwind is a map where, as a Protoss, you're constantly defending, and that's what kind of drove Protoss players nuts originally. Then they watch players like Rain and SOS play, and they're like, well, if I just play like them, I should be okay. If only it was that easy.
Yeah, nice and easy there, no problem at all. Yeah, just play like these guys, it's wonderful. Yeah. That's nice and easy. They're just going to copy their build order and everything will be absolutely fine, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, whatever you say. We're going into this one, and this could be a long one because we are in a long by ground cross position here to the southeast position of Game Heart's Whirlwind. We have in the Red Trunks currently down 1 game in this best-of-3 series. The underdog, I feel, in this matchup, it is
State.
You couldn't find a more American name for a player than State.
Yeah, unless it was a Patriot or something.
Yeah.
Charlie Sheen, maybe.
Super Patriot Boy. That would be fantastic. Versus his opponent. This guy, potentially more patriotic. We'll find out. Nothing more patriotic than destroying your opponent in grand fashion. In the Blue Trunks, playing Terran to the northwest position, it is
Complexity QXC.
You know, QXC used to wear a bandana that was red, white, and blue.
He did.
It was a banner. This guy is as American as it gets. The only person I feel like more American than QXC is quite possibly Mr. Bitter.
Mr. Bitter is damn American.
Yeah, he is. He's he is very American. He declares what has freedom and what doesn't.
He is, one might say, a real American.
It's true. He also has a really big American truck that gets 11 miles per gallon.
Hey, why would he need a truck? I've got to ask.
It's the Bitter truck. Wherever he goes, he has to be a little bit higher elevated than other people.
Well, I mean, how could you look down your nose at everyone else if you weren't elevated like that?
How can you show how much freedom you have if you're lower than other people?
That's pretty true, man. Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. QXC going for the same build here. Very confident. Whirlwind's an even better map to do it on the Neoplanet S, as far as I'm concerned. CC on the low ground here, followed up by the barracks. Now, the question is, there's no second barracks yet. Will he build that second barracks, or will he go for the slightly earlier gas to go for the earlier tech here? I almost feel like he will, just on the basis that... Never mind. There's the second barracks coming down. Well, we know QXC isn't going to be attacking for a while, that's for sure.
Yeah, probably not going to poke until 8-9 minute mark where he feels more comfortable. Meanwhile, State is going to go for double gas yet again, keeping only a couple probes in each geyser.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised he didn't go for something like Nexus first, even though it is a little bit riskier to do if you feel like your opponent's spawning on close ground. But even so, I feel like Whirlwind's one of those maps where you can really go Nexus first and feel safe, because Reapers, they have a hard time getting in.
They very much do.
Man.
Yeah, like, this is the only real area they can do that. Everything else is completely cut off. It's one of those maps where you just don't get a great surface area to use the Reaper. It's much easier to stop it from getting in the first place, and that's why we generally don't see that actually used. QXC with the identical build. Mothership Core coming out a bit earlier here for State. I don't know if this is really going to help him in any way. The size of the map really precludes doing anything with the Mothership Core. It's far too risky. By the time the core actually gets to your opponent, there's too many Marines on the map, and what can actually happen is the core can get caught out and killed.
Yeah, I mean, it could be for defensive measures as well. Having a Mothership Core still can make you really safe against early drops if QXE was doing that. And State, he poked his cell all the way to the middle of the map for the watchtower and then backed off, because if QXE was to do something like a proxy barracks, putting in the middle of the map is the most ideal spot.
I would tend to agree with that. And QXE just scouting just to see where his opponent is. He'll find him eventually, and of course, run into a Stalker and a Zealot, so the SCV is most likely going to die here. But that doesn't really make too much of a difference. Gas is now finally down for QXE. He threw that down at about 30 supply, which is pretty much about as late as you can get if you're just looking for that big focus on SCVs, big focus on minerals. We currently have a third barracks going down here. QXE moving backwards, because he doesn't know what's coming. He can't get a scout. He knows there's a Mothership Core, a Sentry, and a Stalker, but that's really it. Unless he lands a scan, it will be a situation where he has to blind counter again. That's why he's building the engineering bay. That's why he's building the Marines. In this case, State is not going to be doing anything of the sort, and we may see him fall back just in that more standard, safer... There it is. There's the robo, actually, just as the scan lands. Almost like QXE knew that would be the timing, and maybe he did. 3-gate robo right now, so I would not expect aggression from State at all. At least not until a little bit later on.
Yeah, this is a state that I was looking forward to in game number 1. The 3-gate robo, play reactive based off your opponent, get a couple of observers out, see what your opponent's doing, either force your opponent with robo tech or with Colossus tech, and then switch to Templars or vice versa.
Yeah.
This is what I was expecting more. QXE, meanwhile, he was playing a little bit safer just because, believe it or not, 4-gate is still around in this matchup. You can just straight up bust your opponent if he's not careful. And I like the defensive prowess of QXE right now, just making sure he's covered both in his main and his natural. And if he was going to sense anything else was coming, build a second or third bunker, and hopefully you'll be preventable against any bust.
Yeah, and on a map like this, as long as you at least have some map control where you can see what's coming, you have the time to do that. It takes a while for a Protoss player to reach the other side of the map, and they're mostly going to delay it as a direct result of really desperately wanting to put down that pylon, making sure it's secure, and so on and so forth. QXE is building the missile turret. Where is it, actually, more to the point? Yeah, it's actually... So this is more of an anti-DT missile turret than it is an anti-air missile turret. Putting it right next to the bunker to make sure DTs can't run by into the natural.
Yeah, that's definitely smart. Dying to DTs, TotalBiscuit as a Terran player, you definitely sympathize with me. It's just one of the most frustrating things ever.
It really, really is as well, because you know, it's like, oh, I've got scans, I'm fine, and then one DT slips your net, and then it's like, god damn it, you're just watching all your stuff die, waiting for the next scan to come in, and even knowing that scanning has lost you minerals, and it's actually infuriating. It makes me just want to punch people. It's all I'm saying is that Blizzard are responsible, I think, for a lot of violence as a result of Dark Templar.
Oh, don't start that argument again. I know CNN is going to pick that up right now and start writing a bunch of articles on it.
It's going to be horrible, isn't it? QXE going for a bit of a poke here. It's going to be timed with +1, as well as Combat Shield and Stim Pack. He's definitely not going to have Medivacs this time. His factory is way, way later. But I think that just got spotted there by the Phoenix. There's really not a lot here for State, but he should be able to force field this off. The thing is that I have to imagine this is designed specifically to make him do that. And if State misses the force fields, of course, it'll be an absolute disaster. Scan goes down, it's like, oh, look, there's barely anything here. Force fields go down. Color Marines actually get up the high ground, which is definitely not what you want to do, and they are eventually picked off there, but... using it just... Oh, wow, he actually forced a photon overcharge as well. This is brilliant for QXE. He can actually just wait for Medivacs now. He doesn't even need to go up there.
Yeah, precisely correct, TotalBiscuit, especially since QXC's production is not in full force. 2 barracks are finishing up. His starport isn't even completed, and it's 10 minutes into the game. Yep. Normally the first Medivacs are out. QXE doing a good job just trying to bait, and you can tell only stimming a couple of his Marines to force a reaction, and State has to warp in immediately when he would prefer to use his other tech. In this scenario, he would want to get a Colossus out by now, but he went double forge, and he was forced to make all these Zealots and Stalkers.
Yeah, and that means that even if he does get the Colossus out, it's not going to have extended thermal lance, so it's much, much more vulnerable. In this defensive position, that range 9 Colossus would be absolutely fantastic, but he's not going to be able to get that for another couple of minutes. And we will see Medivacs out before that. It'll be interesting to see whether or not QXE decides to try and drop the main. If I were QXE right now, I'd be considering that. Just trying to snipe off what you can, do a little bit of damage. Rather than just going full force up the ramp against a player that has quite a bit of sentry energy, will have a time warp, and will also potentially have a photon overcharge.
Oh, QXC has got State read like a book. You can see the scan was perfect. He saw the Colossus tech. He saw the double forge. He has a second starport already, so he can start producing medevacs as well as Vikings, because State still has the option to just push with 2-3 Colossus and completely overrun the Terran army if QXC is not careful. But in this scenario, he's covering all of his bases, TotalBiscuit.
Well, speaking of covering your bases, State is taking a third one right here. Now, it looks like QXC is going to take his third as well. It seems to me like taking the third right now with QXC with drop capability might be a little bit risky. What do you reckon?
It's risky in most scenarios. Just that State has so much observer coverage. I think he feels really confident he's able to read any medevac movement. He doesn't have the watchtower, but if he did that, I think he would be completely justified in taking it. Just because you need to shut down those medevacs, and if they do, 20 supply worth of army not in the Terran composition is really easy for Protoss to deal with. State has 2 Colossus, a third is about to pop out. I think State can hold this off. It's about whether he takes a good position or not.
Yeah, QXC is going to attack when Extended Thermal Lance is finished, which, oh, ouch. State picks off a medevac quite nicely there, but then runs right into that, but there's a quick blink, loses a Stalker for it, but, I take that trade in either way. QXC actually pulled some SCVs here as well. We're seeing a lot more Terrans doing this. This is not all in, but it is definitely taking a significant risk. But it does give you that buffer, especially against stuff like Charging Zealots. Charge is not done yet. QXC is going to try and take this third base down, and we're going to have to see how well State can defend against it. With that kind of firepower, it might just fall. I think it's just going to fall immediately.
Yeah, there's nothing really State can do when he's holed up in his natural.
Yeah.
QXC getting a little bit careless with his Viking count.
Yeah,
2 of them
down
immediately
there.
drops off Miss Rally.
That's actually really
huge.
Yeah, if State could actually force an engagement right now, he would definitely win it, I feel. He's got the Colossus charge is about to finish, but I think State is too scared. He doesn't want to go out, and that's really unfortunate, because with only 2 Vikings on the field, this force would have done a lot. QXC's already backing off now. It's too late to push out.
Yeah, I do want to come into question about whether or not State felt nervous about that situation based off of QXC saying, you know what, State, I know you're a
I know
choker.
how you play. Yeah.
Yeah, and State had a pretty decisive army advantage, because you're 100% correct. If he would take that fight and maybe even throw down a chrono boost on his forges, maybe he could have squeezed out 2-2 and have a decisive advantage. Who knows? It's a little bit too hard to say now that the moment has passed. State's going to respond by double expanding. This is a very, very audacious move. State really has to bluff his position sort of in order to buy enough time, but QXC, he's still roaming the map. Very good job controlling.
Yeah, he is. He's got the Zelnaga Watchtower, and yeah, he doesn't have observers, obviously, but he's already picked 1 off, so there's only 3 left. His Viking count's getting really, really high as well. The transition to Templars coming in, and this might be the one thing that catches QXC out. If he continues to dedicate towards countering Colossus tech and not Templar tech, when his opponent is definitely nowhere near maxed out, so he has plenty of supply room to actually go for the Storm and the Templar as well as the Archons, then he might be in trouble.
Yeah, the Storm is about to finish, but it's still about 10 seconds out. QXC still had that window to poke in there a little bit, at least use the Vikings to chip down the Colossus, but simultaneously he's also pulling a lot of SCVs, and this is the moment where Storm really is going to be helpful, considering that 2-2 has finished for our Protoss player.
Yes, it has. QXC maybe has underestimated his opponent here. Those Storms are absolutely massive there by State. Huge amounts of damage being inflicted here. Most of the Vikings were at the front and got caught in the Storms as well. State is going for it right now, and QXC suddenly finds himself caught out, but QXC immediately GG's, and State takes that in one decisive engagement.
Yes, exactly what you were talking about, TotalBiscuit. The Storm timing was working great for State. He picked a great spot to engage as well. There's nothing that QXC could even do about both the Storms and the Colossus. His Viking count was so low. Just because he lost a couple here and there. He lost 1 off the initial poke. He lost a couple off of Miss Rally. And those things tally over time. And a lot of Protoss players, they might initially think, wow, Vikings are just so cost efficient. But they're also very costly for the Terran. QC couldn't replace it that easily.
You know what I'm noticing about Terran? We're noticing an awful lot more Terran go earlier second starport, right? Which seems like a really, really good idea. Until you realize that on 2 bases, that means that your gas is fairly limited, so you've got to dedicate specifically to one counter-tech path. You either dedicate to your medevacs and your Vikings, or you start to dedicate to Ghost Tech. You can't really do both on 2 bases with 4 gas. So unless you are able to catch your opponent at a time when he only has Colossus or Templar, if you catch him in transition, you're fine. If he completes his transition before you are able to respond, you are dead.
Yeah, then there's it's almost impossible to hold off a scenario like that. And I do want to re-emphasize that QXE was trying to be as careful as possible. He was not being very greedy with his scans, which I really love. A lot of Terrans, a lot of Korean Terrans come to mind, get really greedy with their scans. But even so, State was able to buy just enough time. And I really think that if QXE didn't second guess himself sometimes, or even vice versa, State also had a really strong advantage and didn't even press that advantage. I really think that this game was a lot of mind games going on between the two guys, and you can really see the decision making really allowed State to capitalize on that mistake from QXE.
Yeah, I definitely think so as well. You know, he had a great engagement arc. It was exactly what he needed to do. The Vikings were at the front, which meant that the Storms ended up taking them out very quickly. The Blinkstalkers finished them off. Once that happened, and the Charging Zealots came in from the left flank, that was it. I mean, QXE was toast, especially with the use of the Time Warp, which was really nice, I might add. It slowed the retreat of the Terran, which meant that the Storms did way more damage. The AoE from the Colossus hit way more clumped up units. It was a great engagement from State. QXE completely, I wouldn't say underestimating his opponent, but definitely making going in a little bit too late. Yeah, if he'd gone in 20-30 seconds earlier, that could have been an entirely different ball game.
I do want to emphasize, too, that just like you were talking about the gas intake of Terran, it also limits their upgrades.
Yeah,
and Protosses are valuing their upgrades almost more than their army per se in the mid game.
Yes.
You can see constant Chronos. Double Forge is so popular right now in the matchup. Having 2-2 and really nice Guardian Shield positioning and organization on his army also really helps State in that position.
Yes, absolutely. That was an interesting game. It was really odd how it actually played out the way that it did, but you can definitely see the logical steps and the decisions that actually led to it. We will be going to Game 3 very shortly. State is taking a comeback right here against the mighty Titan of QXE. Let's see if he can pull that one off or whether that was a flash in the pan. We'll find out after this break, folks. Do not go anywhere. This is ShoutCraft America. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ShoutCraft America. Things just took an interesting turn, and QXE, as he always likes to say, the phrase that he coined, I think he just got Protossed.
That's one way to put it. I also feel like QXE just hesitated a little bit too much in that mid game, considering, you know, pulling SCVs is always, just like you were saying, TotalBiscuit, is at risk. If you don't do damage at that moment, especially considering when Storm was finishing, then it all goes for naught. And I really feel like QXE, you also left really early, and I'm wondering if he's a little bit tilted by the fact that he knows he missed his window of opportunity, and that could play into game number 3.
It could be a case. I mean, I don't think that his GG was really, like, you know, it's not exactly an intro rage quit or anything like that. You know, he completely lost that engagement in the worst possible way. But I definitely think that there was an element of being pissed off at yourself. When you GG in that kind of scenario, you hate yourself. You're like, I screwed up bad. Let's just get this over with. Let's not drag it out. Let's go to the next game. So I think that you're probably right. There may very well be an element to that, but we've also got to bear in mind QXE is a seasoned tournament competitor, so he should be pretty much prepared for this. Although you never know. Maybe he thinks that this group was his by divine right, and it turns out it's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, they're even saying in the chat, QXE's like, apparently someone told me I barely missed my window. So yeah. These guys are good sportsmen about it. You know, QXE seems to really be reflective upon it. I want to see what's going to happen here on Belsier Vestige. It's a map that statistically actually doesn't really favor Protoss, but I feel like Protoss should be able to defend in all cases. We'll have to see, though, because State, that game number 2 was the State I was expecting. Pretty solid, just attack into me and I'll be prepared. Not this Oracle shenanigans he tried game number 1, but, you know, throwing that into a best of 3 isn't necessarily the bad thing either.
No, it's not. Because, especially when you say, it looks like they're actually just going to continue talking about it. As you said, they were talking about how the game went in the first place. And, you know, it was definitely a strange thing indeed. And people were saying, yeah, you know, you did just barely miss your window there, and that was unfortunate. But here we are. Let's see what happens. This guy down in the southeast position just took a game back, and it's now match point in this best of 3 series. He goes by the name of
State.
God, I've got to say, Clutch was almost doing his best Sean Connery impression there, I've got to say.
Clutch is a big admirer of Sean Connery.
As well he should be, yes. So, will State be able to contend with the might of L'Oreal's best American StarCraft representative? He is
Complexity QXC.
L'Oreal, huh? You're very familiar with American brands, aren't you, TotalBiscuit?
Isn't L'Oreal French?
Or is it?
It's probably French.
It's in America. That's why it's American.
It's represented in
wrong?
America in some way, ergo we have claimed it. Typical American attitude, man. It's like, yeah, L'Oreal, totally an American brand, absolutely. Next, you're gonna try and take Chanel.
Yeah, you know, I'm claiming things in the name of America. It's as long as it's got an American flag on it, I'll be okay.
That's the American tradition. No one's managed to argue with them successfully about it so far, so you don't need to worry there. Will State take this second gas as early as he usually does? Yes, he will. So we see the same opening from him and the same opening from QXC. Command center first on the low ground. 3 games in a bloody row here.
Yeah, and it just sets up really nice my games, just like we've been saying all throughout the series. You want to remind people who are just coming in that the series is tied 1-1. Even if they lose here, they get another opportunity. They fall to the loser's match. It's a double elimination dual tournament setup.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Which is good in many ways. It allows you to get a second chance. But if you go down the lower bracket, you're going to have to fight pretty hard. That means you play an extra match, which is in itself pretty difficult. So you have 2 chances to be eliminated there. So nobody wants to lose their first match. That's a really nasty place to be in. It's this little mini double elimination tournament that's going on in this particular format. Of course, pioneered. It probably wasn't pioneered by GSL, but they're the one who popularized the format, I feel.
Yeah, at least in StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
In Brood War, I believe the MSL did it a long time ago. If not MSL, it was the OSL. And it was a very popular format back then as well. I'm really glad it made it come back because, honestly, if I have to be frank, the old GSL format was a little bit convoluted. Sometimes you would have 9 to 10 set matches because it was you win one game and then you move up, but the winner would play the loser and the loser would play the other winner.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a complicated drama.
Yeah, it very much was. I think the cool thing about Duel Tournament is that it also resolves the traditional problems of a group stage format in that determining who actually advances from the group can sometimes be a controversial process, and we see stuff like the coin flip issues at the recent DreamHack pretty much prove that without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh man, the coin flip.
Oh dear. Yeah,
you have to honor the flip, but at the same time, you have to respect the power of the flip. You shouldn't summon the coin unless you're in desperate need of decision making. This is a rule that me, Mr. Bitter and Rotterdam said. Don't provoke the coin.
Yeah, definitely don't provoke the coin. The coin is a vital but very powerful tool, and the last thing you should do is anger it.
And we do see a scouting SE here from QXC trying to see if he can get some early information.
Nope.
Maybe any proxy stargates. Again, being very meticulous in covering all corners of the map.
Yeah, I like that. QXC is being deliberately cautious because, and I think it's because of game 1 actually. Like, he thought he knew what was coming at him, and he didn't. But he was able to blind counter it anyway. But that kind of throws you. You think, hang on a second, this is not, State doesn't usually do this. This doesn't make any sense to me. This doesn't fit into my best laid plans, so I've got to be a little bit more cautious. But this time around, we're seeing State play the same style as he did in game 2. This is the style he's most comfortable with. And I don't know, this could be potentially dangerous for State because it seemed like QXC knew the style. He was reading him like a book, but he screwed his timings up. Yeah? He didn't hit the window he was aiming to hit. And as a direct result, he got caught out by the tech transition.
Yeah, and I think it's a mixture that QXC is trying to be really safe, but also keep his aggressive options open. And that kind of trapeze artist thin rope that you walk upon is really tough for a Terran player, just because QXC is trying to be really safe. He's incorporating the 545 engineering base, so that way if any Stargate comes in, he'll be prepared if he needed to. He's or even DTs. He's also trying to keep his ability, go for a fast stim, but he's also delaying his medevacs as a result. And being so mineral heavy and not having your medevacs, you can't be that aggressive. And he's trying to do early pokes of force to photon overcharge. But State has been prepared thus far in almost all of it.
Sorry, I'm just choking here. So, the QXC did make a slight alteration to his build that's now, of course, been scouted by the Hallucinated Phoenix. The fact is that the factory in Game 2 was super late. Yeah, and it was late because QXC actually went with a timing push that involved getting both stim and combat shields and +1. Yeah? QXC can't do it this time around because he invested in the earlier factory, which means he can't get the earlier tech lab and that earlier 100 cost upgrade. So his marine shield is, as a result, delayed. It is not going to be here anywhere close to where it was previously. But it does mean QXC has an earlier starport, which means it's more likely that we might see some drop harass that's less reliant on the Marines actually having the HP to be able to survive. He may dart in, do damage, and dart out and see what he can do there.
Man, did you take analytical casting lessons from Greetorp and Apollo or something, man? That was actually completely spot on, TotalBiscuit. I'm kind of blown away. You're exactly right. In this scenario, effective HP is really important for Terran to be able to have any poking power, because just like in last game, Marauders were also involved in that poke, and Marauders are supposed to take the early damage hits if you want to be aggressive. You see players like Flash really love Marauders just because he doesn't even need Vikings. The Marauders can tank so much damage from the early Colossus. He goes 4 medevac almost every time, and he's able to drop while being able to tank a lot of pressure. And in this scenario, I really feel like QXC can't be as aggressive, just like you said. In game number 2, he couldn't be as aggressive because of that. But now that he has earlier medevacs, I want to see more of the QXC in game number 1. Utilize the ability to force Protoss into awkward positions and pick off units in straggling numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I feel you want to do at this stage of the game is engage against a Protoss that has Photon Overcharge available and fully charged sentries. It seems like you would end up in a situation that could be potentially disadvantageous through no fault of your own. You can't really control force fields, yeah? It's up to the Protoss to mess them up or to be baited into a really awkward position. It doesn't matter how good you are, you can't dodge a force field. So, in that position, why on earth would you want to give the defenders advantage to the Protoss?
Well, it's going to be a little bit trickier still for State to finish it off. He does have 3 sentries with practically full energy on some of them.
Why
so he can
choke, though?
Force field.
So it's going to be difficult to deal with. There's the Photon Overcharge. He's stimming it against the Photon Overcharge, which I don't think State actually expected, but the force fields have now gone down, and that didn't really do much at all. The sentry stayed alive. I believe a Zealot died, but that was absolutely fine there for State. He's even got enough energy for another Photon Overcharge. This is going to be with medevacs this time around. The second push is going to come in. It's not really timed with anything, although if he waits, it's actually going to... it's +1/+1 is about to finish. This is actually a bit of an anti-timing here for QXC, I think. These Zealots should be able to do a reasonable job, but they are getting slowed down. There's the Time Warp coming in right there, and that Photon Overcharge pounding away at QXC's army. There's way too many Stalkers for QXC to break here.
Yeah, absolutely. And QXC, his reinforcements are coming in one by one, single file. QXC needs to eject from the situation, does immediately back away while his third has finished. If State just counter pushes, I feel, with his Colossus, he could actually just straight up end the game, because QXC was really late on his Vikings. He just started his production. But State, we know him to be the defensive player. And then counterattack, when he knows he has a decisive advantage, he is going to drop his third Nexus.
It's really strange not to see QXC dropping. I know it's a little bit harder against Protoss these days because of Photon Overcharge, but really, it seems like the kind of thing that would have made sense. We talked about it earlier, the reason why it was perhaps not a great idea to push. And yes, he did wait for Combat Shield to finish, of course. But the problem is that delays the push. So your opponent has more Sentry energy, has more Mothership Core energy, and has more upgrades. And we saw the second push landed right as State finished 1-1. So the upgrade advantage was in favor of him. Fighting into a position where Photon Overcharge is available, it just wasn't going to work. It's just kind of surprising to see QXC do that. I don't like to criticize players because I'm dreadful, so there's no real point in me doing that. But it seems like maybe there would have been other options there that might have worked a little bit better for QXC.
Speak of the devil, QXC is going to try to drop, but just like you were saying, it's a little bit tougher. Because State has observers everywhere. He has full map coverage. If State doesn't become a pro gamer, he could work for the Chinese government because he has surveillance all over the place.
Oh, man, you can tell it's an American tournament. Oh, anyway, QXC is going to take a couple of probes away from his opponent. He can get out here without too much of a problem. Photon Overcharge goes in, takes a couple of hits, no big deal. The Blink Stalkers are not in range right now, so that's not really a big deal. Puts out another scan, knows, that's a really small army you've got there. Like, where's the rest of it? State is actually doing a good job of hiding that, which is nice. His opponent doesn't have full force awareness of what his opponent actually has. And a couple of units killed off there, and he's going to get out. I mean, that harassment didn't do a huge amount, but it did put him slightly ahead economically. The third command center is down, it's mining now, and it is, of course, an orbital.
Yep. And now I like this composition way better for QXE if he wanted to start poking, if he wanted to start pushing out.
Yeah.
We incorporate some Hellbats.
But
you can see that State transitioned way faster to Storm this game than the last game, only going for 3 Colossus. Last game he went for 4 or 5. And in this scenario, you still have to be kind of cautious because, sure, Hellbats can tank, But Hellbats, after they're the front line. You need the Marines and Marauders in the back to really start
Oh!
adding a big push.
Mistake by QXC, and State fully takes advantage of that, blinking in to immediately eliminate his opponent. And now what we have is a situation where, as you said, the meat is coming in, but the transition to Ghost is coming in as well. I'm a bit... At the moment, I'm kind of in two minds about Hellbats in this particular setup here. Nice little Zealot run by is actually going to kill off the missile turret, and then it's going to be eliminated. But I'm in two minds against Hellbats versus Storm, because one, Hellbats have a lot of health, which means they can survive that kind of AoE longer. The flip side is, especially with Time Warp in play, they can't get out, and they've got to be at the front, as you said, otherwise they don't do anything. Nice little scan there. Picks off the Observer, nice and easy. Ooh, little bit of lag. We're actually having Frodan lag out here, so we're just going to call a pause. Alright, okay, so looks like we've lost Frodan. We're gonna take a quick pause, and then we'll make sure that everything works out absolutely fine. And obviously I'll deal with the rest of the cast solo. Many apologies for that. Frodan looks like he has lost his connection to the game. Everything is lag-free. We will continue. Gonna put you guys out. Alright, cool. Excellent. So, we will resume without Frodan in the game. I don't want to do a resume from replay here because it would be several minutes of nonsense. We're going to be pausing immediately. Thankfully, this did not happen in the middle of an engagement, but we will hopefully be getting Frodan back as quickly as possible. In the meantime, of course, I'll handle solo. I'm going to apologize, by the way. You're probably hearing a lot of pops. My pop shield is... It's got a few problems, yeah? My pop shield needs a bit of Vicodin. Probably needs Vicodin, and probably a little bit of Viagra as well, because it's gone all floppy. It's really unfortunate. I can't actually put it in front of my microphone anymore. So you're going to be seeing a few pops. I'm going to have to buy a new one here, but yeah, I'm trying my best to make it work, but it's just not. So, yeah, my apologies. Alright, game has been resumed. And let's see how this goes. So the big push comes in, but there is a Warp Prism drop, which is very, very sneaky play here from State. He's actually trying to focus down... He's not going to be able to, but he's trying to pick off the Ghost Academy. That would actually be a massive deal if he was able to do that, but he can't do that right now. In the meantime... State is rolling his forces up to the right here. He has proxy pylons in place so that he can set up a flank. That was over half of the Ghost Academy down. If he's able to do that again, he didn't lose his Warp Prism. He could actually do that again, and if he did, especially considering he's got a Dark Templar Shrine, this could be really, really ugly here for QXC, who would lose his ability to produce ghosts, so he could basically go all in on Templar. There are no ghosts on the field right now. There's 3 being built. If we were able to cancel that and take out the Mobius reactor upgrade, that would be huge, but State is more concerned, I think, now about defending. Currently, we have a situation where QXC does have the slight supply lead, not by much, and... here he goes again. Now, this is not going to kill it before the Mobius reactor comes up. But, oh, nice position of the missile turret, actually. He still should be able to deploy this, but that's a little bit of warning there that's being given to QXC, who is currently bringing his army back. Warp comes in. Zealot's being warped in here as well. Trying to pick off the Warp Prism. He's doing a pretty decent job of it. He's not going to lose that Ghost. Ghosts are actually pretty damn good at dealing with lone Zealots. That's not too much of a problem at all. Nicely shut down there, in my opinion, by QXC. That was a really, really nice move. In the meantime now, State is now rolling out. He's got an Archon out the front. He has got 4 Templar and 5 Colossus. It's a nice composition, but he is up against 12 Vikings. He's bringing in 5 Ghosts as well. That should be enough to deal with this. But it's going to be difficult. EMP is not exactly the most accurate thing in the world, and it's not got a very large radius anymore. So, more often than not, you'll actually see Terran players look for Snipe rather than EMP itself, and that could be a problem if you don't have Cloak. Admittedly, Cloak is kind of a waste of time here, because State, of course, has about 5 million observers, so it really doesn't make that much of a difference, but... he does have Mobius Reactor, EMP is ready, and we're actually looking for a 4th command center here by QXC as well. Both these guys posturing. They're both maxed out. QXC, I think, would be wise to wait for 3-3, or at least 3-2 before he engaged, because he does actually have that upgrade lead. He will... there we go. +3 is finished, and +3 is going to finish there as well. He's also looking for +2 ship weapons. This is a pretty good time for QXC to fight, I think, and State is actually surprisingly kind of out of position there. Oh, an EMP lands, and it's a good one as well. A little bit of engagement on the front. Quick blink out there. Storm defensively deployed. QXC dodged out of that deftly without too much of a problem. The Hellbats weren't at the front there either, so not exactly an ideal engagement arc there for QXC. Did stim, like, he stimmed his entire army, so that could be problematic, but there is a lot of medevac energy available. It's just the time of getting things ready again. Dark Templar rolling into play. That's interesting. I wonder if he'll actually... maybe he could have picked off the ghosts with it there, but... Oh, a nice pick-off. He takes out the Mothership Core. That's going to be a huge deal. The Hellbats are at the front there trying to tank damage, but he eats a big storm here as well. There's the Blink coming in as well. 3-3 not quite finished for the Protoss army yet, though, and QXC looking to have the firepower advantage in this particular engagement. Goes off and is able to keep up his supply advantage over his opponent. Now, we did see, of course, DTs rolling in from various different directions, but it doesn't look like they made it to the main. There's plenty of defense here on all counts. Stalker trying to pick those off, but we're actually looking for a big drop. This is going to be really unpleasant for State because he can't get to that third base in time. He is, however, going to warp in the High Templar, looking for the feedbacks, and they're big as well. 2 go down immediately. Double more through to the Archon there as well, and there's the warp in. That should be a cleanup without too much of a problem. Great moves there by State against QXC here, and there we go. Archons are now in play, and the Stalker army is going to get there in time. In the meantime, however, a strike on the fourth base without the Mothership Core there. He doesn't have any way to deal with that at all. DT's moving it, and he isn't quite quick enough to save it. Nice move with the DTs. Definitely the right position there. They're going to get scanned and killed now, but with the fourth base going down, that is really unfortunate for State. He's still okay, though. He's still very much in this game, and QXC actually has dropped very heavily in supply. He invested a lot in those attacks. The counter-attack is coming. State is almost maxed out. In fact, he is now with 3-3 upgrades, and QXC is not ready for this. QXC could actually lose at this point, depending on how good an engagement this is. We'll see if State decides to wait up. He shouldn't. He needs to go right now. He needs to do as much damage as he can. He's got Archons in the mix. Zella at the front here. Needs to get the Archons at the front as well. Plenty of feedback available. Plenty of Storm available here as well. Dark Templar being warped in. Here comes the sniping attempt. Oh, Viking goes down. The Colossus does not die in that situation. The shields are very much still up. State looking to try and flank around to the third base here. QXC moving into a defensive location. The longer this takes, the more units QXC manages to get on the field. Dark Templar warping is quickly shut down. That's a little bit of a nasty loss there. Taking out the rocks as well, giving position to QXC. Will he be able to hold on to this? A couple of Zealots now moving in really at random. Oh, that was a mischarge there by State. Not good at all. The supply depot's really screwing with the pathing there. Storm goes down. Oh, nice feedback there, but a snipe coming in as well doesn't actually kill the Templar here. There are 3 more Templar available in this mix as well. This is still looking pretty bad for QXC. Let's see if he can hold on to it. Bunker goes down right now. Needs to get a good engagement arc. Vikings go right into it. Big Storm on the line. Quick retreat here by QXC as he tries to drive this away once again, defending his third base. Needs to pick those Colossus off, but it's so difficult to do considering what he's up against. Another EMP goes down. It's a great EMP right here. Good engagement by QXC, but he is in a choke. He is eating a lot of storm damage. The Archon's getting AoE on as well, but QXC continues to hold. The third base continues to live, and QXC almost loses a bunch of Vikings there. Storm could have gone down. Defensive Storm actually whiffs there for State. Trying to get aggressive. Another Storm goes down. Just trying to keep those EMPs away. Another EMP goes down. Hits State's army. Big charge comes in here. This will probably be the time when State takes that third base out, forcing a lift. And that was a tense engagement from both sides, but QXC is definitely not on the good end of this right now. He's lost his third base. State's third base is still operational. State's retaken his fourth in the back here. He's got an economic advantage. His upgrades are looking good. And right now, we're looking for yet another good engagement. EMPs go down. They blanket the Archons. The Archons need to be target fired, though. They're still firing with no shields. That is terrible for QXC, taking yet more damage. He forced 112 supply there. Is able to push this back, but to what end? What will he be able to do in this situation? There's another blink coming in, and there's the GG, and State is victorious! He takes it in very much an underdog story, I feel, in that engagement. QXC, the favorite for this group, falling down immediately in the first winners match. Wow. Well, I think that was unexpected for a lot of people. I really do. State played a phenomenal game. QXC made a few too many mistakes, and as a direct result, he allowed State to get into this really comfortable position. And once that happened, well, State was playing within his comfort zone. QXC was trying to do damage. I feel QXC could have dropped a lot more. Again, this is the thing that I've seen in all 3 of these games. That State is not having to deal with drops anywhere near as much as your regular Protoss player would. I mean, it's a great time, especially if you snipe the Mothership Core. You should be dropping all over the place, in my opinion. QXC, of course, knows way more about this game than I do, but from watching that game, it seems like if you don't harass the Protoss enough, you allow them to get up this ridiculous ball of doom. And that's exactly what ended up happening there. However, we should not take away from State, who engaged phenomenally well in almost every scenario. Great storms going down, great feedbacks in defense, making QXC pay for every inch of ground. And the cost eventually was too high. State was able to max his army out with great upgrades and get excellent engagement arcs with a good mix of Templar and Colossus, and that, as they say, is that. QXC falls down and will be facing the loser of the forthcoming match, Xenocider versus RSVP. State, on the other hand, looking pretty damn good. Let's see if he can maintain that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try and get my co-caster back. That will be nice. And then we'll be going into the next game, which will be RSVP versus Xenocider in a few minutes. We're going to get everything set up. Thank you very much for watching. You're currently watching ShoutCraft America, and we will be back after this break.